There's this interesting video I watched that posits that every 2D platformer is either Mario-pilled or Wario-pilled. You either choose to put the complication and gimmicks into the level, Mario has relatively simple and intuitive controls but throws a new idea at you every level, or you can put them into the player. Wario has much more complicated controls, and a bevy of transformations that mix them up, but relatively simple and open levels allow you to properly express them. The challenge must either come from navigating levels' obstacles or expressing your character's moves. Wario Land 4 made an interesting discovery about the Wario formula. The levels would always have an escape sequence at the end, where you used your familiarity playing through the level traditionally to speed your way through it backwards. Tying this into Plague Knight, after being Shovel Knight's main campaign, the game lets you do it all over again as Plague Knight. Same levels, different character. What makes this interesting is that Plague Knight can fly asterisk at high speeds. Shovel Knight's more of a Mario-pilled game, but Flight simplifies the levels to allow the player to express their skill through a more complicated character. Thus, to break down what makes Plague of Shadows tick is to break down Plague Knight. Let's start with his tools and their use in his kit. The primary movement tool is the Bomb Burst. You blast forwards. You can do it straight upwards or at a trajectory. It's faster than your walking speed, so you'll be blasting forth constantly. Double Jump. Doesn't go up very high. Main purpose is a mid-air stall tool that maintains player momentum, mostly to extend the distance of the Bomb Burst. Bomb Throw. Can be used on the ground with a bit of range, but you'll mostly be using this thing in the air. It slows down the player's momentum and keeps them in their vertical position for a little while. For combat purposes, it gets chucked at a 45-degree angle downwards and bounces on the ground a few times before blowing up. You can only have 3 on screen at a time. Movements. The main idea is that you bomb burst, then double jump if you want more distance. Throw bombs if you need to make an emergency stop. You land, then do it again. Your objective is to burst over as much terrain as you can, so you have to walk and thus slow down as little as possible. Height has an interesting interaction in Plague of Shadows. While you can get up to high spots, it takes a moment, because you gotta build up a charge, jump up, and then burst over. It's far faster and flows a lot better if you're already above it and can continue your horizontal momentum unimpeded. This means that landings have to be picked strategically, so you're high up when you need to be, but also so you don't have to wait to fall back down to the floor when the only exit is on ground level. A lot of the fun comes from height management, while also being careful to secure good landing spots and navigate around enemies and terrain. Combat. If you bomb blast an arc to the opponent, by the time you reach the height of your jump, you'll be just in the right position to spam bombs. You can extend the distance where you remain at the height of your burst with a double jump, so it still works if you're farther away. The bomb cap is quite important for combat. It really forces you to get closer and line up your shots well, because if you don't, there will be a bomb sitting on the floor, and you'll already have 3 bombs on screen by the time you try to throw another, which will directly impact your rate of fire and how fastly you can kill a boss. Quite important in a campaign clearly about speeding your way through the game. The routine is to bomb burst into position, spam bombs until they either stop hitting or the opponent repositions, bomb burst into position again. Accounting for opponents' repositioning while dodging their attacks is what makes this fun. Now we're going to break down the Arcana, a variety of tools that you can switch between, accessed with a dedicated button. The primary limiter is a bar in the corner that recharges passively. Each tool takes a set amount out, and if you don't have quite enough, you still get to use it, but the bar gets overloaded, and no Arcana can be used until the bar is completely full, which leads to some interesting strategies, particularly for the more resource-heavy tools. For analysis purposes, I thought it would be best to use a close allegory to examine them. Meta Nightmare Ultra is quite fundamentally similar. Run through all the levels as a new character, with the limiter removed, while focusing on going fast. Like Plague Knight's Arcana, you have 3 tools linked to a resource bar: a movement tool, a combat tool, and a heal. Meta Knights are all rather rudimentary, which makes them great as both baselines and points of comparison for Plague Knight's tools. The movement tool is a great strategic tool, as the player is made to identify the best time to use it. Meta Knight uses Meta Quick, which simply makes him move faster. While I personally find this very fun, I didn't always. It increases the skill floor, and it creates these snags where you're more likely to get hit and break the game's flow due to reduced control, which kinda cuts into the accessibility I expect from Kirby games. The player is only likely to use it if they return to the mode more experienced. Alternatively, Plague Knight's Arcana specifically identifies some of the game's major flow breakers and allows the player to strategically circumvent them. The major players are the Vat, the Big Boom, and the Smoke Bomb. The Vat controls your interaction with height. Most blatantly, if you're about to fall into a pit, you throw a platform below you, you're not fallen into a pit anymore. If you react, you can cover your slip up and not be immediately thrown to the last checkpoint. You can also stretch this to simply not having anywhere safe to land after using up your burst and double jump. These help make up for the player's personal failings. It's a tad less obvious, but remember what I said about height? The vat gives you solid ground in midair, allowing you to use another jump and burst, and keep flying over walls and other junk on the ground unimpeded. This is more of a strategic use. Do note, though, that the vat has a high Arcana cost. Using 2 in succession overloads the bar, so you're encouraged to land somewhat consistently. The Big Boom and the Smoke Bomb serve similar purposes in the platforming regard. The Big Boom cleaves dirt blocks and weaker enemies, while the Smoke Bomb gives invincibility to walk past stronger enemies that take multiple hits to defeat. Unlike the vat, you can actually use these while moving, which helps with keeping up flow. Obstacles need to be responded to, but in no way do they prevent you from bolting through the level. Their effects aren't on the spot, though, which means you can't panic button them. You just have to take the damage. Smoke Bomb also has high Arcana cost, so it's best to save it to navigate around your hardier opponents. Now we arrive at the combat tools. These tools can help bring speed to greater consideration for combat. I also have a more in-depth video on how 2D platformer combat works. Meta Knight has Mock Tornado, which is a pretty straight screen nuke. It's used to save time thanks to its heavy damage against bosses, but isn't especially interesting to use. The Arcana of note here are the Big Boom and the Staff of Striking. While Boom allows you to take more opportunities to do damage, Staff provides windows to attack with increased DPS. Boom in particular is quite good at complementing stock bombs. The biggest weakness of your primary bombs is how hard they are to land. You need to get the opponent at a 45-degree angle, God forbid they attack from above. Boom has such a massive hitbox that you can nail a strike most of the time. It won't ever replace normal bombs, as you can only have one big boom on screen at a time, but it opens a lot of opportunities. There's also this delightful little combo where you ping-pong your opponent between the normal bombs and the big boom. It's, like, really funny. It only works on opponents that get knocked back, though. Staff rapid-fire strikes at melee range. It allows you to do a load of damage if you choose to get close instead of chucking bombs from afar. It rewards a projectile-based character for being aware of when it's safe to close in. Healing, an incredibly important element, because it means that the player is never too worried about health. If they get low, they might start playing it safe, which means no more speed and far less fun. Meta Knight just has a straight heal button. It heals you to full, try to wait until you're low on health. I think this works really well, because you can just heal on demand without too much work, but it uses up a decent amount of resource that could have been allocated to more speed tools. Here's where I get a bit iffy on Plague Knight. There's 2 main options, so I'm not terribly big fan of either. First, we have health potions. They're separate from Arcana. You can hold 5 at a time, 10 with upgrades. Take 1, and you get a health and a health slot. Unfortunately, they carry over between levels. If you run out, you just have to tough out the level and buy new ones. And you lose all of your extra slots if you die. Not really a fan. I prefer when such elements are contained to their individual levels, like how Splatoon changes the classic live system to just give 3 per level. Discourages hoarding and encourages strategy. Then there's the Leech Liquid. Attack to heal is a good concept that has worked wonders for other games, but that doesn't work very well here. It's a high-cost Arcana that makes it so for a limited time you get 1 health out of a potential 14 every time you hit an opponent. First off, you don't heal enough. If this is an item that drains almost all of your Arcana, it better top me off. Second, it only works during boss fights, where you only have a single target where you hit multiple times. Most of the stage is spent platforming. On top of there simply not being enough targets to hit during the time limit, your attack directly slows you down. You can't make a pit stop for every enemy. The game's flow breaks down. Plague of Night complicates it in a way that doesn't support the systems. Saving grace, however, is how Plague of Shadows and Meta Nightmare are already littered with healing items. The catch is that they're not on the core path. You break away from constant forward momentum to grab them. It's just that Meta Knight also gets the choice to continue his forward momentum and instead consume resources to get his health back. Plague Knight is one of those brilliant characters that demands that you learn and understand them inside and out. The difficulty curve is steep, and they ask you to relearn crap as basic as moving around, but once you pick them up, they're one of a kind, and they fucking melt in the hands as you speed through the entire game. That's the appeal of great Wario-style characters. Anyway, that's that. Sorry for the lack of general design takeaways. You'll just have to find those yourself. Hope you enjoyed the analysis, because I'm too much of a hack to create.